loud. Great. And so that means that this session will be on YouTube, and so you can watch it and enjoy it. Or hello, folks watching this in the future who did not make it to the live session. So the chat is also where I will be putting in links to various upcoming Edge events. And people here in this session are funny and charming, and you might just want to save the chat anyway. And you can do that on a desktop. Ellipses next to the emoji icon, the top option in the ellipses says save chat. And so if you want to save the chat for a variety of reasons, that is how you can do that. Now let us begin. Mr. David Goldberg, how is your day today?
That's a new one. Hey everyone, I'm David. Siobhán, just so you know, occasionally your audio is a little funky sounding, sort of coming and going at times, but we hear you enough, I think, to get the gist of it. Hey everyone, yeah, this is our, what is it, Siobhán, 61st Ask Me Anything, and I am so excited to have Liz with us. Liz, in one word, rocks. Liz is just fantastic. And I'm anxious for her, if you don't mind, Liz, to throw you here last minute, but to give a little bit of information on who you are, real brief, but man, you guys are in for a treat because Liz has such a unique take on this industry. She's so versatile. She's so experienced in so many different areas of this industry that when you pose your questions today, she can answer a lot of them in a very unique way. She can give you some really terrific information. So, yeah. Hi, Liz. I don't get to see you too often. It's great to see you.
Hello, it's nice to see you too. Well, thank you for that introduction. I've got to try and live up to that now. So, yeah, a quick introduction to me. I've been a voiceover artist now for almost 10 years. I started back in 2013. And I was an Edge student, just like you guys. So back end of 2013, beginning of 2014. And I was living in the States at the time. And we were there due to my husband's job. And that's kind of where my voiceover training journey really started. And I went to an in-person training event with David that you ran in Washington, DC. So that's where we first met. And I absolutely loved my Edge training. And what I love about Edge is the fact that you don't just do voiceover training, you train people in the business of voiceover as well. And it is a business. You know, if you're going to do this seriously, then you have got to think of yourself as a business person and, you know, wear all the different business hats that come with that. And so that's something that I really enjoyed about Edge. So I started my training back in sort of 2014 with Edge. But my voiceover experience actually goes back a bit further. I used to work for a very local cable TV station close to where I live in the UK, which doesn't exist anymore, sadly. And that's where I got my first taste of voiceover. And I didn't have any had no training in it at the time. I didn't have any training in being a TV presenter either, but that didn't stop me. And I left there to have my kids, intending to go back. And while I was off, the business got sold and there was no job to go back to. So then I had this big gap until I came back to it when we were living in America, and I had this opportunity to train with Edge. And so at the end of my Edge training, I recorded my narration, commercial, and an audiobook demo, and got my work permit to work in the States, and so started my business out there. And we came home in the summer of 2014, and I carried on working as a voiceover artist, and I've carried on ever since. And I started off on a part-time basis, which, you know, I'm sure is probably what some of you guys are doing as well. And I was employed for 15 hours a week at a local college, and the rest of the time I spent building up my business. And I've been full-time now since the summer of 2017. So yeah, I don't quite know where the time has gone, to be honest. It's all gone so fast.
But Liz, you know, actually, let me tell everyone, some of what is so interesting about Liz is that she's found ways to really market herself differently than most voice actors do. Most voice actors get their start, and very often they're full-time clients by working on the online casting sites, by working with agents, but Liz has had some different approaches to her marketing approach, and it's worked very well for her. And one of my favorite emails to get are emails from Liz that come in sometimes like every few months with like another award that she's won, like most, best small business, whatever it might be. And so Liz, if you can very, very briefly give an overview of your approach to marketing, I think that would be very useful for everyone to hear. And then Siobhán, I think it'd be great to get to some of the Q&A from if anyone has questions.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm taking over a lot of what Siobhán typically says because Siobhán, your mic is kind of going in and out a little bit. So so forgive me for stepping in into your place there. But Liz, can you give us just a brief overview of what you've done?
Yeah, I've done all sorts of different things. So I have done the pay-to-play sites, and when I first started, that was where some of my first work came from. I have to say I've just completely moved away from that now. What I find now is that the pay-to-play sites are so overcrowded. The last one that I left was one which you guys may not be so familiar with, which is Bidalgo. It's a European site. That was the very last one I was on. And on that site, you can tell if your audition has been listened to. And I was finding my auditions weren't even getting listened to. And I thought, I'm just wasting my time now. So, my approach now is to work directly with clients. And there are a number of ways that I find clients. So one of the ways is networking, which obviously I'm going to be talking more about on Saturday. So hopefully some of you guys are coming along to I see somebody partying there. Some of you guys are going to come along to that, and I will talk in more depth about networking and how I use that for my business. But other things that I do, social media, in particular LinkedIn. I tend to work a lot in the sort of corporate sector, so a lot of corporate narration, a lot of e-learning, a lot of IVR, and those kinds of clients tend to be active on LinkedIn, I've found. So, I will use LinkedIn to connect with people who I think sound interesting and have conversations with them. I do also have a presence on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram, but I don't use those quite so much. But what I would say is, whatever platform you choose, the important thing is that you're consistent with it. And way back several years ago, I decided that I was going to concentrate on LinkedIn and see what happened if I was consistent with it. Because I'd had a profile for a while and I only posted on there when I thought I'd got something interesting to say, which seemed to be hardly ever. And I thought, I'm going to put some effort into this. I'm going to post something on there at least every weekday and see what happens. And when I started doing that, after a few weeks, interaction went up massively. And so many more people were seeing my content because I was being consistent with it. And so LinkedIn was like, this person is active. This person is worth showing to other people. And I'm sure it's the same with the other platforms as well. They probably all work, but you have to put the work in. You've got to be consistent. And I would say, pick one or two and do them well rather than trying to do them all. Maybe TikTok is your thing. I don't know. I'm not on TikTok. I really can't take on anything else. So networking, social media, email outreach to clients that I would, people that I would like to be clients. I will do a Google search for video production companies in Manchester, let's say, and Google will bring up a whole list of things and I will work through them and go to their website. I will find something about their website that I like, maybe a video that I can comment on, and I will send them an email and say, really like your video on such and such a thing. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is where you can check me out. It'd be great to connect with you. And I don't ever just leave it at one email. If they don't come back to me, then I will follow it up a month later, and up to 5 times that I will follow up. And it's amazing the number of times people have come back to me on the 3rd, 4th, even the 5th email and said, really sorry for not getting back to you. I didn't mean to, but it's just been really busy. But yeah, we're great to connect you with you. And we've now got something that maybe you can audition for, or a job that you can do. So that does definitely work. Other things that I do, I have an emailing list that I've curated over the years. And I keep in touch with that list regularly, once a month at the moment. And I will send out an email to them talking, not not a salesy thing, so not trying to sell anything to them, but just telling them something interesting about the voiceover industry, a little bit behind the scenes, maybe a video of me in my studio, maybe something about Forvo, if you come across Forvo, which is about a website for pronunciations, and I've shared that with people and people have found that interesting. And my emails go out on the 15th of each month, actually. So my email went out today, and I actually changed the email that I was going to send today. I can't remember what it was going to be, but I thought, in light of what's going on in the UK at the moment, obviously our Queen has just passed away, and we're in the run up to the funeral. And I thought it's more appropriate that I send something to do with that rather than the email I was going to send. So I've now bumped the email that would have gone out today into January. And I created a whole new email to go out today, which which was relevant to what's going on at the moment. But in general, I create those emails in advance, usually in that kind of cheese-filled gap between Christmas and New Year, where nobody's really doing anything else. And I use that to create my year's worth of newsletters, emails that are going to go out to my mailing list. So that's some of the ways that I market myself. The awards that David alluded to, that's another way to get PR for your business, really. Enter local business awards. I found that to be quite useful. I'm actually in line for another award, David, at the end of the month.
To the email.
Yeah, no email yet. I'll tell you if I've won or not afterwards. Yeah, I'm going to London at the end of this month for the Best Business Women's Awards in the service business category. So I'm really excited about that. I've seen posts about their previous awards nights, and it looks amazing. So that's something I'm looking forward to, whether I win or not. And
that's
whether
fantastic.
you win or not kind of doesn't matter. If you get shortlisted for an award, that's the time to shout about it, and you can get as much PR out of being shortlisted for an award as you do out of actually winning one.
So two follow-up, three things actually. One, thank you for sharing that. It's so great to hear. Number two, you should all be thinking of questions to ask, something that Liz can answer, or myself that I can answer. I do want to state one thing about the online casting sites. I know that Liz mentioned that they stopped working for her, but I do want to point out that I know a lot of voice actors who do extraordinarily well through the online casting sites, like really, really well. And they did give Liz her initial push into this business. So there's no one tactic. This is really, I think, the key message. There's no one tactic that works for everyone. And sometimes it takes some exploration to figure out what's going to work best for you, whether that is dealing with trying to win local awards, or social media, or good search engine optimization on your website, or the online casting sites, or agents, or direct marketing. There are lots of different approaches, and Liz has been very creative with hers. But I want to stress the online casting sites can be really good. It won't work for everyone, but boy, they do work extremely well, exceedingly well for some people. So I don't want anyone to be turned off by them, because just because it doesn't work for Liz doesn't mean that it won't necessarily work for you. Okay, so I think we should jump to some questions. Siobhán, you've changed position where you are. Can we hear you?
I popped out and popped back in to see if that would help. I don't know. Can you hear me, my friends?
Yeah, you're here. It's the connection's still a little funky, but it should be clear enough for you to read a question.
Okay, let's get through. I also just want to say, Liz, you're awesome. I put in the chat that she's talking about a lot of relationship building, which is a lot of what small business is all about. And being creative is part of it, which can also be overwhelming. And I really like her saying, like, she chose LinkedIn. She's not going to do TikTok. And I hope that mobilizes people to think, like, okay, I don't have to do everything. I can pick something. And I tell people, you can pick something, you can pivot, if you feel like that's not working. So wonderful. And because I love y'all, I took a screenshot of questions when I popped out so that I wouldn't lose it. So David, I do have one that is for you, which is about how to get a home studio checked and verified to record a demo for Edge Studio. Like, can you quickly just tell us about how that process goes when folks want to record their demo from home to be produced by Edge?
Yeah, certainly. I cannot stress how important it is for everyone to make sure that your home studio sounds good. Your home studio is equally as important as your voiceover, your delivery. It's a combination. Your ultimate sound, the recording that you give to a client is a combination of your voice and how you say the words and the quality of the recording. And I've worked with voice actors who I've heard auditions from voice actors who read beautifully, but their home studio is not so beautiful. And you won't get hired that way unless the client has the idea of bringing you into their studio, which is very seldomly the case. So it is critical that your studio sounds great. So if to the person who asked that question, if you're wanting to record a demo from your home, that's terrific. We at Edge Studio absolutely require everyone who will record a demo from their home to send us a sample of that. And that would be about a 30-second recording, dry, just your reading. We don't want it mixed with music or sound effects. We don't want you to process it. We want to do that on our end. So you send us a recording and we listen to it. You may, and here's very often what happens, probably 70, 80% of the time, you think it sounds great. We're going to listen to it and say, well, it's sort of almost okay, but not up to industry standard. And here are our suggestions. You need to do this or that to make it sound better. And we can do a second go at it and a third go at it if necessary. If you have reservations about or any hesitance about your sound quality, you should actually book a full session with one of our engineers to really work on that audio. It's critical. You won't get work if your studio doesn't sound good.
Perfect.
Answers the question.
Thank you, David, and I hope that was helpful to you, my friend. I think it was Gary. Okay, Liz, the people want to know about LinkedIn. They want to know. So y'all are asking really great questions, and we never really get deep into this. So I'm excited to ask from Amber, what kinds of things were you posting on LinkedIn? Information, like fun things about you. I know some of these answers because I follow her, but do you do videos? Can you tell us a little bit more about your strategy on LinkedIn?
Yeah, sure. So I post all of the above. As I say, I try and post some things every weekday. So today's post was about a networking event that I attended last night. So I took a picture of the event. I posted it this morning. I said, this happened last night. I tagged some of the people that are in the picture so that they all saw it and then they start commenting on it, which is great for interaction. The day before, I had been to the launch of something, a smarter energy scheme locally that I was interested in, and I posted about that. So doesn't necessarily have to be about voiceover, but about what you're doing within your business. So I might post, if I had a new demo made, of course, I'm going to share that on social media. Or if I think I've done an interesting job and I've got permission to share it, I might share that on LinkedIn. I might share a testimonial from a client, and I might go into Canva and create a pretty picture with it and put the testimonial up. Because it's always better to have other people say how great you are rather than saying it yourself. And sometimes I'll put just really random funny things on. So one of the things that got the most interaction on LinkedIn, it was a day when I was thinking, oh, what can I post about? Nothing really's happened in my business today. I've got nothing much to talk about. And I had just eaten my lunch and I'd eaten it at my desk, which I don't normally do. I normally go and, have a break and go somewhere else. But I'd eaten my lunch in front of my computer that day and I'd had this cherry tomato, or tomato, as you guys say. And I bit into it and the seeds squirted all over my screen and I had to then go and clean it up. And I thought, that's quite a relatable incident. I'm going to talk about that on LinkedIn. So I went to the fridge, I got another tomato out, put it on my keyboard, took a picture, put that on LinkedIn and told this silly little story about how I'd eat my lunch from my desk, and I shouldn't have done because my computer got covered in tomato seeds. And so many people responded to that. It was ridiculous. Something like 3,500 people looked at that post, and I forget how many comments there were. So, nothing to do with voiceover, but it is to do with working from home and being an entrepreneur and working on your own and eating lunch on your own in front of your desk, and a lot of people could relate to that. So you can be quite creative sometimes with what you post on there. As I say, I think that the key is consistency, and you've probably heard about the 80-20 rule before, and the advice that I've always had is that 80% of your posts shouldn't be salesy, and 20% should be more aligned with what you actually do and the services you offer. But the rest of the time, just be you, and show things behind the scenes. Maybe talk about the equipment that you use, perhaps, or the editing software that you use, or something, or even something. Share something that someone else in the industry has put on in LinkedIn. You thought, oh, that's interesting. You make a comment on it, and you then share that to your audience. So there's lots of things that you can do. And I think what Siobhán was talking about, what she sees me put on LinkedIn is probably my little roundup video that I do, usually on a Friday. And I will talk about the things I've done that week, the people I've met, the places that I've been to. And I'll post that on a Friday, and then tag in that post the people that I've mentioned in the video. And a lot of people really love those roundups and say, oh, I love your roundup. And that's something I've been doing for a while now. I did miss last Friday because things got a bit crazy with the Queen and all that kind of thing. But hopefully tomorrow I should be back to doing a roundup, and I'll probably mention you guys.
It's interesting. I love the idea of posting some of these information about the equipment you use. And what I'm thinking, everyone, is on my end of the business, we cast, we are looking for auditions, we're looking to hire voice actors. What would be very interesting to me as the recipient of an email from Liz would be a letter that really entices me to read. So I can envision some of you saying, okay, great, I will email my clients or prospective clients and say, here's the equipment I use to process my voiceover, my recordings. But how about turn that around and have an email that says, curious why my voiceover sounds so good, or curious how I get such a clean sound. It's because I use this equipment and this other equipment. So really put it into the perspective of, try word your emails or the information you send out through social media. Word it so it really attracts the attention of a prospective client and answers a question that they may have. I hope that was clear. I'm kind of thinking I'm impromptu here.
Liz, I have another question too with that, because people ask me this really often, and the answer is kind of nebulous, and answer it how you see fit. But do you have any thoughts on the correlation between, these popular posts with engagement, and booking work and clients, and you know what I'm saying? Do you have any thoughts or feels about that you might be willing to share?
I think what people want to see on social media, they want to know what you can do, and they want to know you can do a good job, but they want to know about you. And as a voiceover artist, you are your business, and your personality kind of needs to come out in what you're posting. And in terms of actually sort of engaging with clients, picking up work on LinkedIn, it takes a while, I think, till that starts to happen. You've got to kind of build your audience and build your engagement. And what I do quite a lot of is reaching out to people on LinkedIn, through the messaging system that's on there. Maybe they might be e-learning providers or video production companies, and I'm going to have a look at their profile and send them send them a message through LinkedIn and say, be great to connect with you. This is what I do. Love what you do. I'm looking to extend my network in the e-learning sector. It'd be great to connect with you, kind of thing. And a lot of people will come back and will connect. And sometimes it just lands right, and they're looking for what you do at that time. And that's just a timing thing. It doesn't happen often, but it has happened where people have come back to me and said, oh yeah, I'm looking for what you do. Let's have a conversation about that. But what that person will probably have done before they got back, before they accepted your invitation to connect, and before they message you, they'd have gone to have a look at your LinkedIn profile. So you want to make sure that that's as good as it can be. And if you've got if you can link to videos that have got your voice on, make sure that's all in your profile, and keep that up to date, because that's where people are going to go check you out. And think of it as having a mini website within LinkedIn. And don't just use it as a CV, resume, sorry, it's what you say over there, of what you've done in the past. That might not be relevant to what you're doing now. So make it relevant to the people that you want to attract into your business, who you would like to be your clients. Make sure that the information you want them to have is there in your LinkedIn profile, so it's easy for them to find. And for goodness sake, make sure you put your contact details in LinkedIn, because so many people don't. I'll come across somebody and think, oh, I'd love to connect with you. I can send you a message through LinkedIn, but can I send you an email? No, I can't, because you haven't put your email address in your LinkedIn profile, which is really annoying. So don't be annoying to your clients. Make things as easy for them as possible. That's my best advice, I think.
I love it. And I'm also wondering, Amber has good follow-ups too, where she's asking about the change in your online presence from corporate to voiceover, and any
Yeah.
thoughts about that.
Yeah, interesting. As I said, I did have a LinkedIn profile before I became a voiceover artist, but I didn't really use it that much. And so when I sort of switched doing full-time voiceover, I believe you can't have two LinkedIn profiles. It's something that is kind of frowned upon by LinkedIn, so you can only have one. And I thought, oh, well, I've got quite a few connections, but they're nothing to do with voiceover. And in the end, I just kind of scrapped my first profile, and just redid it all as voiceover. And although if you kind of go back through my my LinkedIn profile, I do have previous jobs listed on there, I don't really talk about it in my profile. It's all about voiceover, because that's what I want to be known for now. So yeah, I just went completely from what had been my corporate job to being me as a voiceover artist, and I never really did anything with the corporate part of it again. And some of those people, that I was connected to, I'm probably still connected to, but they're quite interested in what I do now anyway, because it's more interesting than what I did before.
Okay, and here's the question we love to ask also. Was there a moment that made you feel comfortable to pivot into full-time voiceover?
Well, when I got back from the States, where I'd done my training with Edge, my job in the UK had been kept open for me, so I was obliged to go back to it. Well, I felt obliged to go back to it. But as I said earlier, I only did 15 hours a week for them, so that was fine. I could do that, and I could build up my voiceover work alongside it. And my original intention was that I would go back to my job for a year, and then I would hand my notice in. And I didn't do that, because once I got back there, I actually really loved working at the college, and I loved the students, and I had some great colleagues who were friends. And I thought, I'm not going to hand my notice in, because I really like working here. And I actually stayed for a further, I think it was about 3 years in total. And what happened in the end was that my role was made redundant, and I was quite happy to go in the end. It had actually got to the point where I was struggling to fit both things in. So, I was having to do voiceover work before I went out to work, and doing it again in the evening when I got home. And sometimes I would have to deal with client emails, because they came to my phone while I was meant to be working, because obviously I didn't want my clients to know that I wasn't a full-time voiceover artist. I wanted to give the impression that I was. So it got to the point where that was getting quite difficult to juggle. So I was quite glad in the end that the decision was made for me. My role was made redundant. I was given the opportunity to apply for another job within the college. And I think the college was surprised that I didn't take that opportunity, but I said, no, this is what I need to do now. This is kind of the kick up the backside that I need to really grow my voiceover business, and make it a full-time career. So I kind of had the decision made for me.
I love that. Sometimes, I'm going to get real cliche here, but the door closing means another one is opening.
Yeah.
And Liz chose to take that dive, because things were in play and it was her moment. So I love all of this, and thank you all for these questions. Really great questions, and we're really utilizing our talent in the house today. Bringing back David here. I'm gonna first ask you this, David. Okay, these are questions we've sort of received before, but and I think it'll be good to go to Liz second here. But the person is asking what's about best approaches to book work without formal representation after recording their demos. And I'd love to have your start of a response, David, and then we'll go to Liz's experience with that as well.
Yeah, sure. The way I see voiceover, I think that there are three ways that you can market yourself. You can market yourself solo, meaning you do direct marketing, and these are many of the things that Liz has spoken about already today. So that's one approach to marketing, direct marketing. A second approach would be online casting sites, which we've spoken about, which don't work for everyone, as I said, and do work for other people. Third option is to have representation, to have someone do the work for you, whether that's an agent or a representative and so on. So it's very, very seldom that I find a voice actor who takes on all three approaches. Very often, in fact, the vast majority of the time, most people just stick with one approach. And that's fine. But if you want to bypass having someone do the work for you, meaning if you're not ready for an agent and you don't want a representative at this point, then use the online casting sites and work on direct marketing approaches, and that can work absolutely fine.
Yes, I mean, David said earlier, and this is the case, absolutely, there are many different paths to do the thing. And marketing experts are not really experts, they're just brave enough to try a bunch of different things and see what sticks, you know? Liz, what about you? I mean, so you started doing online casting. What do you feel at this point would be your advice about booking work without formal representation, but you've recorded your demos?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, one of my favorite ways of marketing is networking, which obviously I'm going to talk about more on Saturday. But you know, through networking, you can develop relationships with people, and maybe people who might not have thought about using voiceover before. And you can educate those people into, you know, what the point of us is and what difference we can make to their business. And just to talk about representation, I thought when I started out that, you know, having an agent would be like the be all and end all. And once I got an agent, I would have made it. And I have several agents now, and I get virtually nothing through them. Well, I tend to get is the same audition from all the different agents. So, you know, having an agent, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be doing loads of work suddenly and they're going to be doing it all for you. You know, I think that there's no magic bullet, there's no shortcut. It's a lot of work. You know, whatever you do, whether you're doing lots of auditions on pay-to-play sites or whether you're doing, you know, lots of direct marketing like I am, you've got to put the work in to get the work. I think that's, you know, that's just what everybody needs to understand.
Yeah, that's true of any business.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, you know, if anyone's coming into voiceover thinking it's an easy way to make a quick buck, it absolutely isn't.
I say this often, but I love when people are like, you should just do voiceover. And I'm like, no one just does voiceover. So Liz, you're, you know, and again, David was saying very clearly, you know, we are big fans of online casting sites. If nothing else, getting into a groove of a routine for auditions, of like thinking of it as a gym where you pay for membership to get good, you know, to get fit, and that's what you're doing. We think it's totally worth it. However, we do also have Liz's awesome class coming up this weekend, and I believe it's officially her second time offering it with us. And is focusing on her creative approach to booking work, which is opening your mind and perspective to other ways you can do things. Liz, will you tell us a little bit about what's going on in the Networking for VoiceOver class?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a method of marketing that a lot of voiceover artists overlook. And, you know, I think a lot of people think, oh, business networking, that's not for the likes of me. That's for the lawyers and you know, and for the people that are working in corporate industries. But it isn't. It is very much for small business owners, and it is very much for people like us who are creative, because other businesses need what we do. And, you know, as I said before, sometimes people don't realize that they need what we do. They've never considered how they could use a voiceover artist. But, you know, any business could do with a really good voicemail greeting. And what I often say to people at networking meetings, and I've given little presentations about this, is that their voicemail greeting might be the first impression a potential new client gets of their business. And then you see this kind of light bulb go on and they think, oh yeah, don't think mine sounds very good. In fact, I think mine's just what came with my phone. It's just a generic greeting. And so many people hate hearing the sound of their own voice when they hear it recorded. And that's, you know, that's a pain point that you can help them with. So that's one of the things I like to talk about at networking meetings, and just kind of educate people as to what it is we can do for them. And it's very easy for people to record their own voiceover on a mobile phone or on their computer, and they might think that it sounds okay until they hear it alongside somebody who's done it professionally. And this happened to me just last week, actually. And so an ex-student who used to study at the college where I worked is now a fitness instructor. And we've kept in touch with each other. And so he was, you know, he knew what I was doing now as a career. And he had made a video to use on his social media to push his online fitness training program. And he sent me this message last week with the video attached. He says, I'm happy with the video. He says, but he says, my voice, it just doesn't work on this video. It just doesn't really cut it. He said, would you do it for me? So I recorded a new version of it and he put the video back together. And his response to me was, he just said, he says, wow, he says, I am blown away by the quality. That's just awesome. And, you know, I'm going to be using that example to show other people, you know, the before and the after, to show people, you know, how things sound so much better when they've been recorded, you know, in a proper environment and by somebody who knows what they're doing, rather than somebody just speaking into their computer or their phone. And I can't remember what the question was now, but I hope that's been useful.
I'll share a quick story. And I believe I shared this on one of the Ask Me Anythings like years ago. I was down at a hotel in Washington, D.C. I used to travel down there on a monthly basis for a project I had with a client, a recording thing. And Liz, I think it may have been one of the times that I met you in one of those classes, but I was going back and forth between Washington, D.C. and New York. And the hotel that I was staying in had the worst voicemail system. It was horrible. It sounded like someone who worked at the hotel did the thing and, you know, narrated their own telephone system. And so one day I spoke with the sales manager, who I kind of knew at some point after so many trips to this hotel. And I said, you know, not for nothing, but like your telephony system. And he said, I know, it sounds like crap and whatever. And I said, well, the reason I come down to Washington, D.C. is for voiceover, that this is my world, my business. And the long story short is that he offered, or he and I came to this conclusion, this agreement rather, where I provided him the clean voiceover, and he let me stay at the hotel for free. It was amazing. Like I just had, whenever I wanted to go to DC, I had a free place to stay. It was a super nice hotel, and I just had a supply of voiceover. And I'm not a voice actor. I'm a director, so I still had to hire a voice actor to do the recording. You guys can do the recording on your own. Like in that situation, making a suggestion, as Liz said, can really do well for you monetarily or through some trade agreement. And it was great. I would just side note, if you are marketing yourself, as Liz is suggesting, when you introduce yourself to prospective new clients, I would not always call yourself a voiceover artist or voice actor, because people assume that that means commercials. People who don't know our industry think that voiceover is all about commercials. You may want to tailor what you call yourself to be more appropriate. So if you're contacting corporations, you may want to say you are a corporate narrator. If you're contacting e-learning companies, as Liz does, you may say I'm an e-learning narrator. That's going to get their attention, I think, a lot more than saying I'm a voice actor. I've heard from voice actors who will reach out to a company, a business, and say, I'm a voice actor. And the business says, we don't need voice actors. And they say, whoa, wait, hang on a second. What I do is I narrate video, training videos and compliance videos and HR videos and recruitment videos. And then the company will say, oh yeah, that we have a need for. So just be very conscious of how you titled yourself. Okay. My spill's over.
Yes, no, this is really important. And if you're like thinking about Liz's class and you're like, well, I don't know how much of a network I even have. I think, you know, when I talk about social media, when I was working with an Edge student last week about is network. And, you know, similarly with Liz, I've booked work through social media because I'm just reminding my own network of what I do and the talents that I have. And if you're thinking like, I don't really have much of a network, then perhaps this class would help inspire you to reframe the way you're thinking about that, or to get out there a little bit more and build that network. I mean, Liz, I was literally just thinking you were talking about, you know, women in business or something last night. Not a voiceover event, right? But you can champion yourself to people outside of your industry, which, by the way, is better sometimes.
Yeah.
For reasons that I think, you know, everybody might know. So yeah, I want to motivate y'all to sort of reframe your thinking as Liz does, to kind of think about what your networks are, or what they could be, in, you know, in this moment of like how you are going to kind of get more relationships that build you those you know, regular clients, even, which, as we all know, is a wonderful thing. Yeah, Liz, do you feel that your okay, let me ask you this. Are you like an extrovert, would you say? Do you like just love going out there and talking to people, or not so much?
Well, that's an interesting question. Do you know, a few years ago, I wouldn't have thought myself an extrovert at all. I mean, I don't mind public speaking. I have no problem with that. You know, I enjoy acting. I don't mind getting up on the stage, but then you're being somebody else when you're standing up on stage, or when you're speaking to an audience. You can kind of be somebody else. But I still, you know, walking into a room full of people that I don't know, I still feel a bit nervous about that. And, you know, and that's okay. Because I know that once I sort of start talking to a few people, that it will be okay, because I've done it so many times now. But I think a lot of voiceover artists are introverts. You know, we're quite happy in our little studios on our own behind our mics and not speaking to anybody in real life. But it really does pay to put yourself out of that comfort zone and, you know, go make connections with other people.
Yep, I realized after I said that, I was like, I asked a British woman if she was an extrovert, and that's funny. But yeah, I wanted to highlight that, because there are also people, I know my people in my world here, who might be like, well, I'm not like Liz, you know, I don't, what did she say, of that, what did you say earlier? It was beautiful, like, of that ilk or something. But you know, like, it's part of our job, and you can do it, even if, like, Liz is like, I wouldn't even years ago have thought of myself as someone who is doing this kind of thing. So I just wanted to encourage and hopefully inspire you that way. I saw Brad, you raised your hand. Brad, do you want to ask a question? I'll unmute you, since you can put it in the chat, but you know, let's go wild.
Hey, go crazy. Hi. Yeah, no, I was just going to give a little story about the best form of networking that I've ever seen. And it's not suitable for all of us. My ex was a very well-known musical theatre actress, and used to go to networking events with her and just be blown away, because it was never, ever about what she could get for herself. It was always about putting other people together. So she said, oh, you're a voiceover. Oh, I know he's looking for a voiceover. Go and have a chat with each other. And what would always happen was it would always come back. You know, they'd all owe her a favor. And so it had always come back to her in the end. But you've got to know a lot of people to do that. Anyway, that was one thing. The other thing was, I remember I was invited about a year and a half, 2 years ago, to a BNI thing about 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was, something stupid. And I fought against it. Eventually I went along. And I met some people. There was one video production company there. Anyway, we chatted. It was a year later when this fella rang me and said, are you still doing the voice? I've just done a video. And you know, so it's the long game, isn't it? So that was all I wanted to say, really, just to share some stuff.
Yeah, it's a great point, because Brad, it's a terrific point you bring up, because guys, when you contact someone in terms of marketing, the chance that they need you, a voice actor, at that given moment is pretty slim. Liz, you said it's happened like occasionally, but for all the reach outs that you've done, it's probably a really small percentage.
Yeah.
The goal of marketing typically is to become top of mind. Like somehow, and you all need to remember this, do something in your marketing right? Have some approach so people will remember you when they need you, because they probably won't need you the day you contact them. So if they toss you aside and they forget about you, then a day later, if they need you, they won't remember you. So think about, well, what can you do so they do remember you? And whether that is repeatedly reaching out or having some clever branding or something unique about your voice or stories as Liz sends out to people, that stuff goes great. There's there was a post many years ago from a voice actor who, I think this was one of the greatest posts, and so many people remembered this guy. He was caught for drinking and driving, and he was sent to, he's a voice actor, by the way, a full-time professional, caught for drinking and driving, was ordered to go back to driving school. And when the driving school class began, the teacher had the class watch this video, and he had narrated that video. So he posted online, check this out, I had to go to driving school before a DUI, and I had narrated that first video. Then, things like that are really interesting, and people remember that. And Liz, your story about the tomato, people will remember. It's fun, and so that your top of mind has to be to make sure that you remain top of mind with the prospective client. So Brad, great job. Whatever you did, somehow that client remembered you a year later. That's phenomenal.
And Lauren said in the chat, it's about planting seeds, and
Yeah.
anything that feel like it might not be worth it, like, you never know. So the effort is, in my mind, always worth it. We owe it to ourselves to put forth that effort. Yeah, amazing. Woo! And here we are, speeding through time itself. This has been such a good, I feel like we haven't had a chat like this on AMA before. And so if I missed some questions, I just really wanted to delve into Liz's expertise here, especially her expertise as related to the class she's teaching, because it's a very special moment in time. She joins us from the UK at a time of, mourning abroad, and I'm just, Liz, we're so grateful for that. Any last reflections before we go, Liz, on your end?
Just, I'm really looking forward to talking more about networking at the weekend, and the things that Brad has just mentioned about there. A couple of things I'm going to be talking about exactly that in my class, because those things have happened to me as well. So yeah, just thanks for coming today, and hope to see you all again on Saturday.
Thank you, Liz. I am dropping the links in the chat, of course. The class is on Saturday. It is at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Time zones, 1 o'clock. Everyone do the math. But I've dropped it in the chat. Our classes, by the way, they're very affordable. It's for someone like Liz, and this time you're going to get with her is just, it's valuable. So also, I'll say this, if you're like, I want to hear her, I want to be there, but I can't physically be there, you can pay for it. We'll send you the recording. Okay. So, just giving you that option. I'm also, of course, just going to drop in our class schedule for all the things coming up. We have Investigate Voiceover. I'm teaching Investigate Voiceover for a few sessions coming up. So if you're new and you want a friendly face, I'll be there. There's also just other wonderful, attractive coaches here at Edge that you can take classes with, and check out our class schedule. David, any last thoughts as we wrap up today's session?
Yeah, I thought there were terrific questions today, and Liz, it's always dynamite hearing you, and I look forward to hearing. I look forward to your next email, right, about winning that next award.
I'll let you know what happens.
As you said, yeah, as you said, at least being shortlisted. I'm sure you'll be at least that.
Yeah.
Siobhán, thank you for being the most amazing host. And to all of you, I wish you a great 2 weeks, right? We're back in 2 weeks. By the way, today's Ask Me Anything was an hour earlier than typical. Siobhán, will we be back to the regular time next in 2 weeks from now?
Yes, indeed. The 29th will feature David and myself at our usual time on the Zoom. So that's 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for adjusting, everybody who's made it to this time shift. This will be on YouTube. And I just want to say, too, in our last couple of minutes, you all know this, but this is a free offering we like to provide to the community. Liz is here donating her time. So any love you want to throw into the chat her way, Liz, I'm especially grateful for you giving us your time and energy. And follow her on LinkedIn to see the things that she is doing. It's Liz Drury Voiceovers. She's awesome. Yes, Ron, great info. Thank you, thank you. It's great to see everyone, and we will be back on Zoom in 2 weeks' time. Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Thanks, Siobhán.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Liz. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having me. See you Saturday. Bye.
Bye, everyone.